Hello, and welcome to Only Stupid Answers. My name is Sam Basher.
And I'm DJ Wooldridge.
We're coming to you from the same room. Baby, this is high-tech. Buckle up, gang. This is the most high-tech Iron Man review you ever seen. And it's not just a review, it's a breakdown because we've been doing a rewatch series of the MCU in chronological order, starting with Captain America, the First Avenger, Captain Marvel, and now the first baby boy, Iron Man, starring a little-known actor named Robert Downey Jr., Terrence Howard, Gwyneth Paltrow,
Yes.
Jon Favreau,
Jeff Bridges.
Jeff Bridges. R.I.P. for this movie, not in real life.
Exactly.
His character. Spoilers, of course, because this movie came out over 11 years ago, 12 years ago now. Which is this movie still really holds up. That's the whole review section. Do you have anything to say?
Well, on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 94% with a 91% audience score, and the consensus is powered by Robert Downey Jr.'s vibrant charm. Iron Man turbocharges the superhero genre with a deft intelligence and infectious sense of fun. It's interesting going back. Yeah, exactly. I think it's interesting going back and watching this. And especially since we've been watching this in chronological order of when these movies take place, Captain America in the 40s and Captain Marvel in the 90s. And one way it really adds a sense of like the backstory. By the time we get of Iron Man, it's like, oh, okay, so these things have been happening. And it adds a little sense of weight when Nick Fury shows up at the end. But on the other hand, there's some things that don't make any sense. Like in Captain Marvel, they're running around going like, yeah, we're S.H.I.E.L.D., we work with S.H.I.E.L.D., we're agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And in this one, Coulson's introducing it as like the Strategic Homeland Intelligence Enforcement Agency or whatever it is, right? And there's even a joke like, oh, you should make that an acronym. And like, we're working on it. Well, in the 90s, you had it. What's going on in this scene?
Yeah, no, it's not the smoothest transition, but also the idea that S.H.I.E.L.D. knew that Tony escaped by unusual means, so they're like, we gotta debrief him ASAP. It's like basically strapped a rocket to his back and he just flew away. Like it's not like Captain Marvel stuff. Like good to be on high alert, good to be like on top of that, but he's not doing anything crazy.
yeah. And it's, I think maybe you could go back to like other movies and the way some of that plays out, and maybe they want him for other things. They want Stark and not necessarily Iron Man, because Iron Man does not exist by the time that Coulson's showing up. I do remember in sitting in the theater, and once it finally clicks, because like I probably, like a lot of people, like when Coulson starts saying their acronym, I just zoned out. And then when he did it again, I'm like, okay, this means something. And then it was like, oh, this is S.H.I.E.L.D. And then when they do the big reveal, it's like that was really rewarding. That was a fun nod. And the S.H.I.E.L.D. mythology, because this is before the concept of shared universes. It's not until like the stinger that they even reference the Avengers. Even before that, you're like, okay, that makes sense. The S.H.I.E.L.D. mythology lines up with Iron Man, like tech, military, all that stuff. Like it makes sense that this would kind of get looped in with that. But it ended up being something so much bigger.
Oh yeah, no, and it feels so small. Of course, it's a solo movie. It's not an Avengers 4 movie with like 75 main leading characters, but it's still, even for a solo movie, it feels even smaller than like Ant-Man, because Ant-Man's got the knowledge of what world it exists in. Like this movie doesn't. Like this movie, like we know watching it now, but they didn't know when they were making the movie. They were just trying to make a solid Iron Man movie, and they did. They had a really specific take. And there are like, of course, there are things to criticize, which we should say, and also just like political things and cultural things that have changed for the better, I think, that are not great in this movie. But yeah, no, there's the smallness and the closeness of this movie. It's just kind of refreshing. It feels nice. Like I guess the only similar movie that almost had this like a similar take was Bloodshot recently, where there's no like universe attached to it. But movie wasn't good.
Yeah, that movie wasn't entertaining. It is. There's. It's interesting here in this Rotten Tomatoes consensus that he specifically mentioned Robert Downey Jr. And it really is his force of charisma that I think powered not only this movie but this whole idea of this phase one. Like, because you and I mentioned when we watched Captain America, like now we really enjoy it, but at the time we're like, all right. And I think there was a sense of like, Thor was kind of rough. We felt kind of all right about Captain America. Hulk was okay. Why did we stick with it? Because Robert Downey Jr. was great, and there was that promise of Avengers. So we're like, all right, we're going to hold out. And then thankfully, we're not there yet, but thankfully when Avengers hit, Avengers was also great. And so it's like, okay, it's all worth it. It set the tempo of, all right, we'll sit through from some just all right movies, okay to not so okay movies. If it gets us stuff like Avengers, if it gets us like another Iron Man, you know what I mean? Like the full apparatus is more important than its individual pieces.
I fully agree, and it's and just I'll get my criticisms out of the way really quick. And you mentioned this off camera, so I'm just going to kind of parrot you, but you can kind of add some clarity or more detail. But like the way that like I'd say most of the women in this movie are portrayed. There are only 2 female characters that are focused on.
Yes,
which there aren't that many characters to focus on in this movie. So there are the reporter and then Pepper Potts. I like how Pepper's characterization becomes more just it's better in like Iron Man 2 and then moving forward from that because she becomes more of an individual and not just an extension of Tony or a someone for Tony to love, that she's able to do things. Like she is doing things in this movie, but she feels very damsel in distress or like she's like fawning over this man. And it's like there are elements that are better than other movies, of course, when it comes to her characterization, but it's like overall it's like I'm glad that we kind of started to evolve her immediately after this movie. Like we made her more of an individual and like it's just interesting looking back now with the way that we were looking at like the Middle East. I mean, it's post 9/11, like so there's an easy villain in movies, like political movies, like think of any army movie was like going to the Middle East, and I understand that. Like I know it's a different time, and like it just made, I think it was just it seeing it with in a new light.
Yeah,
I don't know if it made me uncomfortable necessarily, but it just became very clear that like this isn't my favorite aspect. It doesn't feel not you know what, here, go ahead and take over. I'm gonna think of the word that I want to say.
I think maybe what you're trying to hit on is with the women, and especially the depiction of the antagonist based in the Middle East is it's just dated. It's an aspect of the movie that's just very of its time. I'm
glad we don't do it anymore. That's what I want to say is that that's you thank you for that, because it's the depiction of people from the Middle East. And it's not doing it for everyone, but the way that they view like the towns and everything, and like Iron Man's role for those people, I'm like, yeah, this is dated. I understand what they're doing, and I'm glad we moved away from this.
Yes,
but this was the beginning. I know it's dated, and I did enjoy it when I saw it in the theaters. But now it's more like there's other elements of the movie that I enjoy more.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because there's aspects of Tony's character that are it's meant to show, like especially at the beginning of the movie, like, oh, this guy's kind of an ass. And he grows, but there's this sense that the movie doesn't think he's in, like it's kind of lip service, because like you can tell the movie, like when they're in the plane and all the stewardesses become strippers or whatever, there's a part of the movie that's like winking at you, me like, isn't this cool? And it's like, well, kind of not really, actually. Unfortunately, because we've gotten to spend so much time with Tony, not only there's the arc he has in this movie, but the overall arc, is really, really impressive. And I got to say, the groundwork of that, the counterbalance to a lot of the depiction of the Middle East is Ho Yun-sen, who helps Tony build the armor. And I don't know about you, Sam, but like watching this again, when he looks at Tony, like he classic, like he's, just like Erskine in Captain America, like he has to die so our hero can live or whatever. He's dying, and he looks at Tony like, don't waste it. Don't waste your life. Having seen Endgame, you're like, oh, damn, man. Like that adds so much more weight to that scene and to Endgame, like this kind of like continuity that they have between them.
Mm-hmm. No, I fully agree. And it just knowing where this character, even with all of his flaws at the beginning of the movie, where he ends up as a person, it felt very emotionally gratifying.
Yes.
And I did want to say that when we had our with Civil War, looking at how Tony's point of view of what he does and what his place in the world is, and his identity and how he views his own company, it really sets up well Civil War, even though that was not the plan at all, like even a little bit. But the idea of with a civil war, with a registration act, and accountability.
Yeah.
That idea that he feels that he hasn't been accountable for what his own company has done, and really what he has been responsible for.
Yeah,
and the idea
especially post Ultron, but we're not there yet.
We're not there yet, but yeah, that's definitely his fault. Where he's like, "This was all of us." Yeah. It was like, no, that was
that
you.
Was kind of you. That was kind of on
and
you.
And if you do want accountability, that's fine, but don't get the whole team in timeout because of this. Anyways, I'm excited to talk about that movie too if we can do it. But no, I do like the setup for that because it is what you want from billionaires, right? You want accountability. You want people to like be held accountable for like, you guys have immense power, and he himself feels that he needs to be held accountable. But at the same time, there is an argument that could be made where he's like, but I'm not going to give anybody else the Iron Man armor. That's the me. That's all for me. I get to make the decisions for that.
Yeah.
So, you can't hold me accountable of what I do in that sense. But with the selling the weapons, yes. What I do with the murder machine, that's all on me, baby. Yeah. That's me. Huh? Which, there's plenty of think pieces I bet that are out there that are more well spoken than I that would be able to dive into, because it is something worth discussing and exploring about the character as a whole. But Robert Downey Jr., I think there may have been an actor out there that could have given Tony Stark an interesting flavor, an interesting take, but him specifically, Robert Downey Jr. working with Jon Favreau, the way that they're able to adapt this character into someone who you should not like, what you do. And that's the epitome of what the character was when Stan Lee like pitched it initially. If you can correct me on this, but I remember that's like the tagline for the character is like, there was a contest to create a character that should be unlikable, but you end up liking him anyways, and that's Iron Man. And that's who Tony Stark is. That's who Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal of this character is. Now, I did want to talk about of course, like every Marvel movie, you got to set up 70,000 things when we start a movie. And of course, the terrorist cell that kidnaps Tony on behalf of Obadiah Stane, which I always forget that he has like ties to him, but I forgot that Obadiah was the one who set all that up.
Yeah, I gotta say, this also sets kind of a trend. This is a problem that I think plagues the next Iron Man movie, which I think is the next one we watch chronologically. That not only in Iron Man movies, the ending is kind of the weakest part. And just Marvel movies in general, for the most part, the villains, like I always forget Jeff Bridges is even in the MCU. Yeah. Like, and it's interesting that like in none of when they talk about Obadiah's relationship to his dad, having watched Cap, it's like at that point Obadiah probably wasn't even born, but like in any of the flashbacks we get of Tony's dad, not once is Obadiah mentioned or seen or his existence acknowledged. Like he's just gone. Yeah, it's the heel turn. I think the movie plays at a pretty organic pace, and then about the 2/3 in, they're like, "All right, time to wrap this baby up." And suddenly, like Obadiah is like poisoning people and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, the best is that like he just built a gigantic Iron Man suit, and he goes and like rips the thing out of Tony's chest. Like he just moves at a million miles an hour. He's like, "We're gonna rip this out of him, gonna kill him. There's literally no way that people aren't gonna know it's me who's doing this." Yep. And then I'm gonna get into a giant Iron Man suit and start rampaging, just like murdering government agents. It's like, don't worry, I'll know how to cover this up.
Yes.
Easy peasy. Which, hey, maybe there's a way to cover it. I don't know.
We should look into it.
Yeah, who's to say? But I did want to talk about the 10 Rings, because that was the name of the terror cell. And of course, the 10 Rings is a nod to everyone. Any casual MCU fan is familiar with in Iron Man 3. We think we meet Ben Kingsley's the Mandarin, but really he's not the Mandarin. It's Guy Pearce saying he's the Mandarin, but really he breathes fire. Now, personally, we have different opinions on this, and DJ, please voice your opinion on this. But I'm fine with the heel turn, because I think the Mandarin, or I think there's valid criticisms of the comic book character having racist roots.
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about? His name is probably okay.
Yeah.
But I understand that you want to change it. So instead of like really like adapting it, it's more like just more thinking of Guy Pearce yelling that he's the Mandarin is like,
and also the breathing fire. And I think that because we watched these movies again prior to Infinity War. And so I remember then I think the idea of the reveal in that is actually pretty fun and funny. But if you're going to do that, the new villain has to be as interesting and as entertaining as the one that's not the fake villain. And so when you find out the guy that was the Mandarin's not, and it's like, well, here it'd be like if you were watching The Dark Knight, and the Joker, Heath Ledger's Joker, ends up being like a front, and it turns out the accountant, the Chinese accountant, he's the real bad guy. You're like, oh, what?
And he's like, I'm the Joker.
Yeah, I'm
like,
the Joker. And you're like, what? like it needs to be as entertaining and as an engaging. No, I am a big fan of Guy Pearce. But his Aldrich Killian wasn't gonna cut it.
And I don't disagree. I did like his performance in the movie, and we're getting ahead of ourselves with the Iron Man 3 discussion. But that being said, the Mandarin was introduced in the MCU in some way, and then he died. Yes. But then there was a follow-up in All Hail the King, an MCU short, one-shot, whatever you want to call it. I know it has a name, but I forgot.
I think they're called one-shots. I think you're right.
One-shots. Boom. We see Ben Kingsley and like Sam Rockwell's Justin Hammer in prison together, and Ben Kingsley's character is brought aside by some like suited men, and they said, you pretend to be the Mandarin, but we're going to take you to the real Mandarin. So just setting up in the MCU that like for fans of that character, he is out there and we're just not there yet. We will do that character justice. And that leads me to the kind of like theory for what could come next for phase 4, because we talked about it last week when we were watching Captain Marvel, and I kind of want to talk about it now based on what we have set up in Iron Man that has not been touched yet. And I have two things. So one, let's do the main one with Shang Chi. So that movie is in production. It's been halted because of COVID-19.
Yes.
And now, and that's starring Simu Liu as Shang Chi, Aquafina, and let me go ahead and get his name.
It's Tony Leung as the Mandarin.
As the Mandarin.
Yes. So and I hopefully I pronounced that correctly. I apologize if I didn't.
Yeah, no, but it's cool that we are finally getting the character. So in some way or another, and the movie is titled Shang-Chi and the
Legend of the Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Boom, boom. That's such a good title, by the way. That's we haven't had a Legend of in so long that was good. So I'm excited to get a good movie with Legend in the title. But anyways, I did want to talk about how the 10 rings in this movie could be set up for the 10 rings in Shang-Chi, because I like the idea of a kung fu master like Shang-Chi having to hunt down like throughout the world, possibly this movie being centered in like New York, because that's where Shang-Chi usually operates in the comics, or like whenever there's like a map in the current Agents of Atlas run. I don't know if you've checked out an issue. They show where all the agents are based, and Shang-Chi's always in New York. So like having him set up in New York, being like a ground level superhero using kung fu to fight, a la Iron Fist.
No, we can forget about Iron Fist. That's okay. Iron Fist can take a nap.
Iron Fist.
Yeah.
And then ending up having to go on a global tour to take on the 10 Rings, this international terrorist organization that we end up seeing in other Iron Man films, as well as Ant-Man and the Wasp. One of the buyers for the yellow jacket suit has a 10 Rings tattoo on his neck.
Yeah.
So there's like their reach is far and wide. So the idea of them collecting kind of superhero tech similar to Hydra, but we don't ever have to really use Hydra ever again, because we've used Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to use Hydra a lot. Let's try to use something else. And having 10 Rings kind of be a supplemental supervillain organization similar to like AIM, even though that was underutilized as well for Iron Man 3.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing AIM come back. AIM can be fun.
And I did want to give a quick pitch for what the Mandarin could be doing in that movie based on what we know right now, because we get mention from Jarvis being like, before you go out into space again, Tony, let's go ahead and start adapting the suit so it doesn't get ice buildup and other nods. Because famously, the Mandarin's 10 rings, because he's a martial artist, but also he has 10 rings that give him superpowers, crazy stuff. He's got psychic abilities, fire, electricity. You guys know. Those are built from the engine of a crashed alien spaceship that they put together, which I don't know why they do all the magical stuff, but I was just reading up on it before we started recording, and their power is unlimited. So I like the idea that we have Shang-Chi taking on this like black market underground supervillain like network where they're sharing tech from like the crash site in Infinity War, where they could have salvaged a lot of stuff similar to like the Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming, or from like the wizards in Hong Kong during the fight in Doctor Strange. Even though time got rewritten, maybe they lost an artifact or two, and slowly this like martial artist is able to control his international global syndicate via these 10 rings, and it would just kind of be a payoff for the character as a whole. And I did want to give another shout out because Ho Yinsen is so good that in the comics, I think because of the Iron Man movies, they introduced his daughter Tony Ho as like the new Iron Patriot, or she has a couple different names, but she has her own Iron Man outfit, and she is hyper intelligent. And I think it'd be really cool to have that character, who is Asian in the comics, be like show up in Shang-Chi as being played by Awkwafina, because I think if we're having Shang-Chi go after alien tech or sci-fi tech, having someone on the team as your nerdy computer person, the person you yell like English please whenever they start saying math stuff, having that character in the movie would be really interesting. And they have not announced yet who she's playing, and they're keeping it pretty tight under wraps. And I think it would be a cool reveal to have her possibly be related or being a student of Ho Yinsen or something. I don't know. That's the pitch I have right now, is having Ho Yinsen's daughter Tony Ho showing up in the movie somehow, and also the setup of the 10 Rings Mandarin using tech from the Infinity War battle or other battles and creating the 10 Rings to control his global syndicate. What do you think of that so far?
I'm all for that. I think, and part of me, the comic fan, kind of felt like we missed an opportunity with the Mandarin, in that, this was post Avengers. And so I feel like there was a way, and this still could remain true actually, that like you said, he makes those rings from a downed alien spacecraft. We just had an alien invasion in Avengers. So maybe the Mandarin gets his rings from one of the downed Leviathans. You could have somebody call that Leviathan Fin Fang Foom, have that connect somehow, because now we actually have dragon-like creatures. And so we could just say the Fin Fang...
Under New York, talking about that.
No, we're not talking about that.
Under New York.
No, we're not. But you could say like one of those Leviathans was Fin Fang Foom. You could even bring it back like... resurrect it somehow. But as bummed as I was there, because I still, rewatching this movie, I still feel like it's a bummer that Iron Man's no longer part of these movies, because we never really tapped into his rogues gallery. He's got like Great Gargoyle, and I think, what was this? He had an ice-based villain name that showed up in his animated series, and we never kind of tapped into these movies, unfortunately. Like, we got Whiplash, sort of, you know what I mean? And we got Mandarin, sort of. But the good news is, just like Batman's rogues gallery can be co-opted by other characters that might not have the most robust rogues gallery of their own, now these villains can go off and be villains for other characters. And the cool thing with Mandarin, I think, being a part of Shang-Chi, is a big part of Shang-Chi's backstory originally was his dad was supposed to be the classic pulp villain Fu Manchu, and his being a character like created in the 30s, his rights are kind of nebulous. So Marvel changed it, whatever. Mandarin is directly inspired by the character Fu Manchu, so now we can just make the Mandarin his dad. I don't know if that is what they're doing, because there have been reports of like Jackie Chan's supposed to play his dad, and we already know who's playing the Mandarin.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
It would be cool, really, but I think not having Mandarin be his dad is a tremendous missed opportunity. And I think either having him make his rings from battles from Infinity War or Endgame, or from the original Avengers, which gives him a little bit more time to make those rings, would be really cool. I do want to see full 10-ring wielding Mandarin. I want to see the full tilt. I want them to go for it. Also, you mentioning Iron Fist, I wonder, with the kind of negative press around the character of Iron Fist, I wonder if maybe you could, fanboys are not going to like this suggestion. What if you just made Shang-Chi Iron Fist? What if you just, Danny Rand, guess what? You're taking a nap. We're going to put that character on ice for a minute, and we're just going to combine since Shang-Chi is his name, he doesn't have like a Black Panther or Captain Marvel or an Iron Man. Like, he doesn't have a name. What if you just gave him the identity of Iron Fist and just called it a day? You just leapfrog.
It's a fun character, and there's a lot to pull from that the Netflix series just couldn't.
They couldn't do, and Danny Rand was problematic before the series, and now there's all of that. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so much baggage with the Iron Fist character, but the legacy of Iron Fist and what Iron Fist represents could be really cool. And, maybe there's these huge Shang-Chi fans, like purists, that are like, don't ruin Shang-Chi by making him Iron Fist. I don't know, but maybe combining the two together would kind of like, I don't know, whatever. Just the thought that came to me literally just now.
just now. But hey, also like I think the Iron Fist character, if you wanted to be Danny Rand, if you wanted to be Colleen Wing, if you wanted to be, there's a lot of different ways you could readapt the Iron Fist character after the license at Netflix lapses and they're able to use them again.
Yes.
But I think the Shang-Chi movie sounds really solid. And the idea, like in a sequel, bringing in other like martial artists characters and kind of revamping them a little bit and letting them live again and kind of marrying Shang-Chi into some of those stories would be pretty cool as well. But also keeping it ground level with his storytelling would also be really interesting as well. But I did want to mention one last time, because you mentioned the Leviathans being the Fin Fang Foom in Iron Man. It's pretty well known for people who are looking for Easter eggs. I'll put it that way, that there are movie posters throughout Los Angeles when Iron Man's flying around for a Fin Fang Foom movie.
Yeah.
And it's just a picture of a dragon with the name, and that's just supposed to be a nod that, like, I believe he showed up in the Iron Man comics originally, like way back when, and Iron Man fights a big dragon, but he's like an alien, but so that kind of fits really well with the Leviathan being like, it's like a dragon whale, but it's an alien, there's a lot of wiggle room. But I wouldn't mind using having like Iron Fist fighting a big dragon being part of his origin. I would not mind seeing Shang-Chi take on like some sort of big dragon or Leviathan or whale-like creature or something like that. I think that would be a really cool setup for one of his movies and being kind of a callback to Iron Man. I don't know if Shang-Chi's character, sometimes when I've read him, he's kind of been, an ass, but you also respect him because he's very disciplined, and the idea of maybe adapting that character trait from Iron Man to Shang-Chi and making him like a similar foil of being like the jerk who is redeemed through his actions and his like hard work and his determination. I think that could be really interesting. But also big reason I want to bring up Fin Fang Foom is because I really want to see like a monster Godzilla-esque Avengers type movie or a crossover movie where you have like a big team of like Captain Marvel, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, the X-Men, Fantastic Four coming together and fighting monsters. I'm a simple boy. I'm sure you guys can gather that based on where my hand is going right now. I'm a simple man. But I just sometimes want to see superheroes punch big monsters in the face.
Yes.
We are getting King Kong versus Godzilla, but those are two big boys fighting each other. Sometimes you want to see a bunch of smaller boys and girls fighting big boys and girls.
Yes.
Am I wrong? That sounds pretty cool to me. And if it was a Marvel movie where it's like, your guys' like CGI and like Endgame is pretty top notch. So if you gave it enough time and you really worked at it, you could have some really cool monsters. Goom.
Yes.
Son of
classic Goom.
Maybe
what's the
evil version of Groot?
Yes.
Would be kind of cool.
What's the one-eyed tentacle dude that's in Shumagorath from Marvel vs. Capcom?
Oh, Doctor Strange villain. He's probably going to show up in some sequel, but if he popped up one more time, come on, it's like a Cthulhu-like monster. Come on. You guys are crazy. You know what? It's time to go to the phones. Let's go ahead and check in with Mr. Daniel Martinez. Let's go ahead and get him called in real quick.
But as far as the Iron Man stuff, I kind of want them to just keep going with either bring in Riri from the comics as Ironheart, or we've already cast Tony's daughter, right? So have her take up a mantle. Maybe she could be rescued, like her mom. So we can always go back and have Ironheart available. So just something like that. I definitely want to. We need tech-based heroes in the MCU.
Well, we need those building scenes. We need those scenes where their suit gets on them, because even in this movie,
that's what Spider-Man's for.
Oh, true. Let's see Spider-Man suit up scene. I want to see.
We need more scenes of people putting their hands in holograms and putting them back up.
It's almost more impressive than the Iron Man armor is what he's capable of doing with
holograms.
And especially in Iron Man 2. I can't wait to watch like when he starts playing basketball with them, and you're like, what? Gang. We want to hear from you. What do you think of these theories? What would you like to see adapted from the Iron Man canon of villains or storylines in future movies? What other characters would you like to see? And who would you want to see take up the tech mantle of Iron Man? Come on, we want to see more suit-up scenes. That's one of the cornerstones of the MCU is seeing somebody put on a really cool robot suit. So let me know who you want to see in the comments down below. Make sure you follow us on Patreon, patreon.com/onlystupid answers. As low as $5 a month, you get our Discord, you get bonus episodes, you get email sounds. I don't know if you could hear that on my end.
Sure
Probably
can.
you could. Sure can. Don't know how to turn it off. I've hit 17 buttons and it keeps making that sound. Who's to say? But gang, we hope you enjoy. I'm excited to check out future movies, and it seems like you guys are enjoying them as well. So get in touch on Twitter at Sam Basher,
at DJ Talks Trash,
at Only Stupid Answers.
Yank out the bells from stupid.
See, we're just in the same room together. Keep those no clipping, don't clip, don't show the background. But gang, thank you for watching. Please rate our setup in the comments down below, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.